Hi guys, hope you're well. Welcome to DOdaily, Thursday Thoughts. It's Des here. Hopefully you're having a good week. Can't believe it's been a week again already since the last live session. Of course, that's what I am. Here to answer your questions. I've got a good selection to go at today. Really looking forward to getting stuck into those. Not the easiest of the questions to answer, but looking forward to answering them nonetheless. Just before I start, of course, I like to sort of say how today's been. Feeling absolutely great at the moment. You know, the running, the exercise. Managed to get out for a run today at lunchtime. Speak a lot about using the daylight, making the most of that. And I was actually based in two locations today, so I've done a bit of extra work this afternoon. So a bit of a different day to what I normally have. So I managed to get out in between sort of a split shift. Really enjoyed that. You know, when I do these split shifts occasionally, it tends to be a bit of a struggle in the afternoon. I tend to get really tired through all the exercise and the work I do at home. You know, normally it can be a long drawn out afternoon, but getting out for a run in between, and despite the fact it's really cold, the sun's actually out locally in Nottingham today, so it was fantastic to get out there and make the most of that. It was a brutal run. The wind was absolutely horrendous, but like I say, just the sun being out made a difference. I went back to work this afternoon and felt absolutely fantastic. And after some tough activities this week, you know, some tough sessions, it was nice to get out and just sort of take the pace off. Wasn't too fussed. Let the wind slow me down a little bit. And then I walked back from work, I walked home, so that really sort of helped with the recovery as well. My legs were a bit stiff and a bit tight. So really sort of made the most of the day. It's not been a conventional day for me. And whilst I'm always saying use the daylight, the way my day's structured don't always allow that. I tried to get out as much as possible. But working sort of in the morning and then preparing for DOdaily and such things, sometimes I have to go really early or really late. So it's fantastic to get out there, and it makes such a difference. It's made me, like I say, it made me look forward to the afternoon. And despite being busy, doing several things, it just broke everything up just nicely. And then walking home as well, giving me myself some time to think about the answers, do a little bit of research. I really enjoyed that. So hopefully you've had a chance to make the most of it. I appreciate it's probably not sunny where everybody is. Just looking at the television and the news, the weather's a bit bleak, and I'm pretty sure it'll be back up on us as well soon. So like I say, it's definitely important to make the most of it. It really does make a difference. I always say I take pictures, managed to do that as well. So all those things just help sort of break down the day, break down the boredom of what I'm doing sometimes, and really sort of get me through. So I'm really pleased with that. Like I say, if you can get out there, if you do have to wait till it's dark, please be safe, be secure. There was an episode a couple of weeks ago who said a really good response. I spoke to a friend called Dan. He told us of a scenario where he was approached by somebody, and there was some tips on there about staying safe. So if you've not seen that, 2 Thursdays ago, sorry, the 7th of January, look that up. Really good stuff. And on that note, I've actually got somebody to speak to next week. I'm going to bring somebody in who's going to answer some questions, provide some information on forthcoming events. I won't say too much, but it'll be someone different to me. Just sort of break things up nicely, but we'll hopefully pass on some good information and help people out in that sense. So yeah, definitely everything's going well. Like I say, get out there, get that activity and keep it going. These daily announcements are made every day, and I was just getting a bit lost in it then, so I had to drag myself away. It's we know what the rules are. We just got to keep going, keep attacking it. Let's not get bogged down with that, and keep doing the things we enjoy. And activity is definitely one of those for most people who watch this. Of course, I try and transfer the information, try and make it transferable. So where possible, I'll do that. But of course, I'll always encourage activity where I can. getting into the questions, as ever, we'll start with last week's throwback. Which one word would you use to describe running? Helen asked me this question, and I thought it'd be a good question to throw back at people, whether they're runners or not. Got a pretty good response. I put it through my own social media, and most of them are really, really positive. Most of them came from runners. I was looking for a few sort of non-runners to respond, but most of it came from runners or people who take up activity. And I'll just sort of read some of those out. Dawn said invigorating. Ian said enjoyment. Steve calming. Kay said rewarding. Helen said addictive. Fulfilling. Rachel and Ben both said the same. They're married, so good job, really, isn't it? Thinking along the same lines. Simon said freedom. Davna said universal. Red said freedom. Claire said challenging, but in a good way. Hannah said escapism. Stephen said escapism as well. So lots of positive words there. Michael said competitive. Of course, some people will see it like that. And John said me time, if that's why it needs to use it. But as you can tell there, lots of them are really positive words. And the reason I asked that question is because I know even some of those people within there are struggling for motivation, and it's important to remember what makes you do it. If the word is rewarding, when you're really struggling, think of the long term. Think of what it does for you. That's the point I'm trying to make there, So Kay said rewarding. So if she was struggling one day, just think how rewarding it is. What makes you do it in the first place? What's the one word that comes to mind? It might just give you that spark to get out there and do it. Michael says competitive. If something he sees maybe on social media or on a recording app like Strava, makes him go out, that's great, isn't it? The whole point is getting out there and doing it. And that's why I asked that question. I just wanted to see what the responses were. Like I say, lots of positivity, and that's what we're looking for. Just words, just to sort of encourage us and remind us of why we do the things we do. Because essentially, the reason I do daily is because I want to pass on a positive message. The reason we work together as a team when we've got full-blown running clubs and we create these sessions throughout the week is to be positive and just to keep motivating and inspiring people to do things. So I thought that was a really good question from Ellen initially. So thanks for that. It inspired that question as well. And hopefully you can take something from those words. I think one of the best sort of answers there was Claire, where she said challenging, but in a good way. And that's one of the things, isn't it? That's one of the key sort of motivators for a lot of people. It's all relative ultimately. So despite some people may be competitive, some aren't. So, I'm particularly competitive with myself, so I'll keep challenging, I'll keep setting goals, I'll keep setting targets. And that's something we spoke about a lot this month as well, isn't it? And that kind of leads us nicely into the first question, which is from John. One of my challenges this month, I've spoke about it a lot, is I've gone meat-free. I'm trying different things with my diet, with the activity I'm doing as well, and not drinking. This is possibly the most difficult challenge, because one of my sort of go-to things with meat, one of my go-to things with food is meat. I love sort of all the rubbish things that we eat, burgers, and all those things. But I challenge myself to just try it, just see what it's like not to have it, And whilst I'm doing other things, I'm trying to sort of build it up to see how I go by not drinking, not eating meat, by being consistent with my exercise. All these things are sort of building up to that consistency. And John basically asked, has being meat-free changed how you feel about food, and will meat-free periods feature going forward? The second part of that question, will meat-free periods feature going forward? Quite possibly. I've realised what's happening is I'm thinking more about my meals and planning them and preparing them. Sometimes when I get a bit snacky, I'll reach out for the sausage rolls or Scotch eggs. All these things that we know are rubbish, but they're just easy. Pastries, those sort of things I really enjoy, but they don't really do well for diets. So it's making me think about different snacks. I'm eating a lot more apples, fruit. I'm eating a lot of yogurts and buying fresh pineapple and things like that to have as a puddingy type snack or in between meals. It's making me think about that. And so I can see myself sort of taking that forward and reducing the meat a lot more. And that's the purpose of it more than anything. I don't plan on being vegetarian or vegan, but what I'd like to do is sort of reduce that, because I know some of the foods I sort of go to around meat, can be a bit high in fat. They don't lay well when you're wanting to do activity after. They don't sort of, they make you feel a bit bloated and a bit stodgy. So that's my intention going forward, and I think that's what it will do ultimately. I'm proving that I can go without it. I'm 21 days into 31 at the moment, and I am looking forward to a bacon sandwich. But it's things like that which I'm trying to cut out. Me and Kay have got into the habit before of having bacon or sausage sandwiches or fry-ups for breakfast as a treat, at the weekend. And we just want to sort of reduce that a bit more, make it a bit of a bit less often, and get used to eating the porridges, the cereals, the things we know we should have a lot more of, particularly at the weekend when we just kind of let our guard down a little bit, just trying to get into great routines. So I can see it being, not without being full on meat-free periods, I can see it being, the meat intake being lessened significantly. How do I feel about food? Well, again, like I say, it's made me think a lot more about it, and basically, I can be a little overindulgent, and that's the reason I've done this. I know I'm a little overindulgent with food and drink without it being a problem. I know I can lose weight when I need to. I know I can make certain changes, and by challenging myself, that's the way I do it. But what I tend to do now is look at food as fuel, which essentially that's what it is, isn't it? When I'm not thinking about losing weight or training or trying to feel better, I tend to look at it as something to enjoy. And hopefully that makes sense. I tend to sort of indulge in what I'm doing. We all eat a bit too much at times, but again, because I'm enjoying it, it's just there. You do it for the sake of it sometimes. So by looking on it as fuel, by sort of planning it out, by realizing what works well with activity, what works well for my running in particular, I think it's definitely changing. So hopefully there's some information to go out there. I spoke a little bit last week, another one of Helen's questions actually. I spoke a little bit last week about the different types of things I'm trying. So check back on that. That kind of what John's asked today expands on that. It's a great question. It wasn't particularly easy for me to answer, but it's a work in progress, and I've set myself the challenge. I'm getting through it. I'm not going out on a heavy stomach at the moment. And what I have to do at the end of the challenge is remember that, I'm not feeling stodgy. I'm not sort of sitting on last night's tea when I go out for an early run, or having to wait much longer to get out for a run because I've got a heavy stomach. I'm getting enough protein. I'm eating lots of eggs. I'm eating fish. I'm not massively keen on fish, but certain types of fish I'm eating. So I'm getting the protein in, but I've just got to remember that's the key. We can all set ourselves these challenges, but when we get to the end of them, we have to remember how it works rather than look forward and say, well, I can just do this anyway, because that's ultimately what we do when we sort of fall off the wagon. So yeah, great question. Moving on, another really tough question, this one. Ben actually asked me this question last week, and I've actually done lots of research into this because I didn't know the answer. Like I say, what I tried to do is look into it. Look, if I haven't got an idea, look into what other people are saying. And I've actually done so much research into this one without any real definitive answer. What I will say first off is, I'll read the question first. Do you have any tips to combat cold feet when exercising. There's lots of things that cause cold feet, cold hands and feet when you're not exercising. Sometimes people suffer with that naturally, and a lot of that's down to certain health issues. One of the main reasons we suffer with cold hands and feet is because they're the points furthest away from our heart, so the blood's pumping and it takes a lot longer to get to those areas. But there's some health conditions, thyroid issues, low blood pressure, diabetes, poor nutrition, obviously, and things like anemia. All that can cause cold feet. Of course, they can cause that in general sort of times, whether you're exercising or not. When it comes to the running, there's no real sort of answers, and I've searched so much, use different terms. What it does kind of say is that there is a few things that could cause it, there's a few things that could stop it. Ultimately, you could try wearing more socks, different shoes, because essentially what it probably boils down to is poor circulation. Your shoes might be too tight, Ben, might not be, but it could be a reason if your laces are too tight. I know I'm guilty of, and this is something I've been doing recently, actually. I've been untying my laces. I was guilty of just slipping my shoes back on, without untying the laces. A little bit lazy, but pulling them on, and then your laces tend to get tighter as they are, and then it hurts your feet. But I've noticed recently I've been untying my laces a lot more, probably because they've been a little bit muddy in all reality. But so when I tie them up again, they're a little bit looser, and I felt so much more comfortable. And I never had an issue with my feet or being cold or anything like that. But obviously, it's making a difference to my circulation. It's making me feel a bit more comfortable when I'm doing it. So appropriate footwear is obviously one to look at. There's lots of reasons inappropriate footwear can be detrimental, blisters and losing toenails and all sorts of those things, but that's going into another issue. So check that they're appropriate, they're still appropriate. Try a different pair, maybe, a few different pairs just to see if the problem persists. Maybe try wearing more socks, but again, with that, don't wear too much because it might then sort of make your shoes tight, and it's just about finding a balance. Like most things with clothing and running, it's all a little bit trial and error. One other sort of small tip I saw was you could try putting your feet in warm water before you go. So warming them up, of course, drying them well, putting your socks on the radiators. I think we had a question about clothing a while back, and Ben was suggested putting his when he goes on his morning runs, all his clothing on the radiator overnight. Of course, that's one way of sort of getting out warm to start with. So yeah, there's a few things there, but like I say, it's a really tough one because as much as I searched, and I'll post a few links about sort of cold hands and feet. I'll post them in the comments after the video because it was really interesting stuff. Apparently what happens is there's a process called vasoconstriction and vasodilution, and when we exercise, the vasodilution sort of helps the blood pump around the body. So ultimately, exercise should help with that cold hands and feet. It happens quite a lot when you go out in the cold. You really feel it with your hands, and particularly, for the first 20-30 minutes. Apparently, that's how long it takes for your hands and feet to warm up. I know Ben runs a lot longer than that most days. So it really shouldn't be happening. Exercise should be helping, and that's one of the experts I sort of listened to on YouTube, and I'll post that link in particular, was saying that a process called angiogenesis works, where it makes new blood vessels, which when you're exercising, your sort of body self-regulates and it kicks in and it sends the blood to all the areas it should do. So going back to that point I made about cold hands and it takes that time to warm up, how often have people gone out, put gloves on because it's absolutely freezing, then within 20 minutes you're pulling them off and shoving them in your pocket because your hands are just getting warmer and warmer? And that's what really should happen. So when that doesn't happen, it's normally down to circulation, and metabolism. Poor nutrition can sometimes lead to that, and again, I'm looking to do something in the next couple of weeks on bad habits, and I might post this on a Thursday, bad habits before running, so just look out for that. But we could go so much in depth, but the sort of summarizing that, what I'd say, Ben, is to look at your footwear in particular, get that right, try different trainers, perhaps try putting your feet in the warm water. I can understand how frustrating it would be, running on cold feet. Try and avoid puddles, I know that's almost teaching you to suck eggs. We all try to avoid puddles, but sometimes you can't. Cold feet is something that don't particularly bother me. I go out there and do it, but I can understand why it would some. So it just might be down to a few of those things. Nutrition, again, we'll look into that a bit further. But thanks for the question, Ben. I'm enjoying getting stuck into that. Whilst I can't answer that definitively, because nobody can give me the answer on YouTube definitively, hopefully there's a little bit to go at there, and work with. So good stuff. And kind of moving it again, a nice little link into the third question. Michael asked, why do you like running in the rain so much? I mentioned a lot on DOdaily about getting out there in the rain. As much as it's great to go out in the sun, like I mentioned today, and I felt all those benefits of the daylight, that bit of vitamin D, it was cold, so it was fresh as well, and it cleared my head a little bit between jobs. I also like getting out in the rain. Yesterday, I got absolutely battered in the rain, but I love it, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's hard sometimes getting out the door when it's raining, but if you go out and it's not raining and it cools you down. I tend to, without being crude about it, I tend to sweat a lot. I'm a bit of a sweat monster. So it cools me down quite considerably, which really helps, when you get stuck into the runs, it always feels a bit more epic. It feels like you're really achieving something, you're really pushing yourself to the limit. Quite often when it's raining, I touched on yesterday that I almost went further and felt like going further. Quite often I have gone further. Yesterday I went exploring and I could have got lost. I didn't, but I tend to do that in the rain, and that's a bit bizarre really, because probably not advisable, because I ended up in a tricky route in the wrong shoes and things like that. But I just love being out there, it really works. And again, I think it's that freshness, the fact it cools me down. And one real important thing about sort of not letting the rain put you off in particular is if you're training for events, you never know what it's going to be on race day. So it's okay if you train all summer and it's amazing weather. Then when the rain starts, you decide you're not going to run, or you're not going to cycle or walk or do whatever kind of event it is. Because on the event day, you never know what you're going to get. So it's best to be prepared. We'd all like to turn up to an event and it be 12, 13, 14 degrees, cool, not too warm, not too hot. But ultimately, we can't control that. So what we have to do is prepare ourselves mentally. And I always talk about sort of running in the rain and how much I love it, I'm just trying to convince myself I love it sometimes, because when we do get to those events where we're starting from a standing start and it's absolutely pouring it down, and believe me, I've done a few, there'll be a few friends who might be watching this who can vouch for that. We've had some absolute nightmare rainfalls to run through, half marathons and things like that, but if you've not done it, particularly if you're a new to running, new to events, if you've not done those kind of runs, if you've not got used to it, you're not going to know what clothing to wear. You're not going to know about the right footwear. We talk about cold hands and feet there, gloves, hats, you need to prepare yourself up for all scenarios. When you're going into an event in particular, that you need the best preparation you can, nothing left to chance. So if you know exactly what it's like, if you've not let the weather determine whether you go out for a run, whether you go out for a bike ride, if you've not let that, you're preparing yourself all the time. It's taking those steps all the time to be ready for when it comes around. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because, like I said, the worst thing you can do is turn up for an event in the wrong clothing, or not knowing what it's going to be about, and it's difficult. That's why I really enjoy sort of running in the rain, is just to prepare myself, to get my mind right, to prove I can do it sometimes. It's hard work. We all get demotivated by different things, by being tired, by the weather, by this, and it's just about going that sort of extra mile. I spoke earlier in the week, went out there thinking I was going to do 5K. I ended up doing an extra mile because I was listening to something, which was saying go the extra mile, And when you prove you can do things like that, it just sort of helps you going forward and makes you realise that anything's actually possible. And that's something I say a lot on here as well, isn't it? So again, thanks for the questions. I'll keep saying it. I'll keep getting out there every time it's chucking it down. I'll tell you, I've had a real good one, but it's definitely worth considering, especially if you've got events planned. Unfortunately, for the bigger events, we tend to have to train through different seasons. So that's important, isn't it? A lot of spring marathons are very warm, but we have to train through the winter. So you have to use the good days and the bad days. The autumn events, you have to train through the hot weather, but it could be cold. So again, when it is cold during the summer, it's important to get out there. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. Again, great question. Thanks for that. And those are the questions today, guys. Hopefully you've taken something from that. As ever, thanks so much for the input. Thanks for all those responses. Keep posting your questions. Email des@dorunning.org.uk. Post your questions in the comments on any of the videos throughout the week and on any of the social media posts. I'd love to sort of have plenty to go at. Got one or two sort of sitting in the background, things that I'm still researching, trying to sort of build my knowledge up on. As I always say, it's just little bits of information, not too much. I don't try to be too technical. I purposely try not to be too technical, because it's all just about taking that key bit of information, isn't it? There was a few things I said there about what Ben could possibly try, and he might have tried all those, but if he hasn't, one of those things might just work, and that's all we're looking for, just to try and be sort of relatable. Whenever somebody asks for my opinion, I try to be honest. All this is supposed to be is a little bit of a safe space. If you want to know anything about something in particular, do what I do. YouTube's there. I've spent an hour today listening at different YouTube things about Ben's question there, and again, still tricky to find a definitive answer. So whatever I can pass on, I will. But like I say, thanks a lot. Keep posting those. I love a Thursday. It's really, really tricky for me trying to articulate the information, but hopefully it's come across okay. As ever, we'll finish with a throwback question. And I'm going to kind of go back to John's question there in terms of what he was asking about going forward. So what I want to know is, have you tried something new in January or at any time? It doesn't have to be January. Have you done something as a trial that was so successful that you've carried on, or you will carry on? You might have tried it this January and you're thinking, this is working. The meat thing, whilst I'm probably not going to go completely meat free, I know I'm going to think about it a lot more. So is this something that you've given a trial to? It might be running itself. I only did it to lose weight. I loved it that much. It became such a huge part of my life. So is this something you've tried that you've carried on because it's worked so well? If you can sort of post those in the comments as well, I'd love to sort of post some of those up. Again, it might just give people inspiration and ideas to give it a try themselves. And whilst we're not telling anybody what to do, never tell anybody not to do something. That's absolutely up to you. We're not telling anybody to do anything. We're just advising, passing on ideas of how it could work, and just, like I say, trying to give over those snippets of information, small little nuggets for us to try, and if it works, we can always look back and go, yeah, that really worked. And, and then that's a fantastic feeling, isn't it? Listening and learning all the time is a great way of feeling great about yourself. And that's all we want to do, isn't it? We want to feel good about ourselves, life, the crappy situation going on around us. Try not to talk about that too much, because it's here, isn't it? It's something we've got to deal with. And we're doing whatever we can to sort of get over that. Further to everything I've said, we'll be back tomorrow. Wake up to walk. Not quite sure what I'm going to do, but I mentioned earlier in the week I'm perhaps going to look to create a few routes. I'll post them up in the comments afterwards. If anybody locally wants to do those, and I'll be looking to sort of explain where I am, what I'm doing, and even people not locally might just think, well, I can go out and do that, where I live, or there might be somewhere that resonates and gives you an idea to get out there. Of course, I'll be full of beans and reflecting on the week, looking forward to the week ahead, letting everything that's happened so far sort of fall off my shoulders, and attack the weekend, because it's a nice time to relax, but it's a nice time to do all the things I really enjoy doing, keep myself busy, keep myself entertained whilst we're in lockdown, and when we've got that bit of extra time, it's great to go into it feeling on top form, isn't it? It's great to be really sort of excited about what you do, and I'm enthusiastic. Hopefully you're enthusiastic about what you do. Like I say, I'll be waking up to walk as soon as it gets light. I'll be recording, from somewhere different. So until then, guys, thanks for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, all the usual things. Still trying to get those subscribers up, but until then, just doing it.